Okay, thank you everyone for joining us for this Q&A with the director as well as the cast of Tiong Bahru Social Club. I had a chance to watch it just last night, so I did my homework for this Q&A, and I might say I really enjoyed it. I think aesthetically, conceptually, it's really one of the most exciting Singapore films that I've watched recently. Yeah. And I think there were so many points during the film when it just struck me that what I was witnessing on screen was so Singapore. Uh, but I say that without really being able to adequately describe why it's so Singapore. But it's one of those things that kind of like hit me on a very visceral level. Uh, that the whole place looked like a giant kindergarten. And that there were all these like people's association kind of vibes going on. That there was a lot of like infantilizing of people, people in authority positions of authority, sort of like speaking in very condescending manners. All these attempts to quantify the unquantifiable. So I must say, there are few Singapore films where I have this kind of very visceral reaction where I see, oh my god, this is where I live, and this is where I've grown up. But I must say that Tiong Bahru Social Club is one of them, and the other films struck me in different ways. So something like the Yellow Bird, when I see all the characters sweating, I'm like, okay, this is the hot Singapore that I live in. When I watch Tiong Bahru Social Club, there is the over manicured, the overly art directed kind of environment also, which I totally recognize and resonated rather chillingly with me. Okay, so let's launch into our Q&A proper. I love the fact that we all gathered here from, I suppose, like two different places because some of you are in Singapore and our protagonist, Abi slash Mr. Thomas Pang, is calling us from the US right now, right? Yeah. And I guess it's one of the interesting silver linings of this pandemic that we're able to gather virtually, that we become quite habituated to this interface and remote intimacies are possible. Okay, so Bee Thiam, maybe I'll just start the ball rolling with a question for you. Um, let's go to the very beginning. I know I sound like a psychoanalyst now, but when did the germ or the seed of Tiong Bahru Social Club, when was it planted?
Mm, I guess it's
Yeah, when?
for a while. One of the things that I shared with I think the cast and crew is that my mom is always asking me when I'm getting married and when I'm
Mm,
buying a house, which is what
right.
most mothers would do. And
Okay.
I think this is a film to answer her. Yeah.
Wow. It's a very wow. It's a very expensive and elaborate answer, right? I mean, most people will just like, yeah, tell the mom to wait or something like that. Okay, but interesting. So when, so it's an ongoing conversation that you're having with your mom about getting married and.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of sons and mothers as well, right, in their homes. And
Mm,
I met Auntie, right, my co-writer, about 5 years ago, by chance
right.
really at the Singapore International Film Festival, and
Yeah.
that's when we were talking about, where do you live? Like, how about getting a place like in some part of Singapore? And of course, we are thinking of like, oh, what about getting a place in Tiong Bahru? That'd be so
Right.
cool. And of
Yeah.
course, then we launch into like the stories that we have heard, and our
Hmm.
house hunting adventures. Yeah.
Right. Right. So it's interesting. So your co-writer is Auntie from Finland, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Just now when you mentioned the word auntie, being Singaporean, I thought you meant auntie like an uncle. So I thought your auntie was also asking, hey, when are you gonna get married? BTM. Anyway, so I suppose the next thing I'm curious about is the title. Because when I see that title, what I also relate to or what I would think of is Buena Vista Social Club.
Mm.
So where did the inspiration for this title come from?
Um, we were thinking of like a title that reflects Tiong Bahru Community Center, but we don't want it to be
Mm,
so direct. So we thought we
Mm,
will play, with the Buena Vista Social Club, like you've mentioned, a
right.
film where it's almost like a musical, where the music and sound is very important. That captures, I
Mm,
think, the sound of yeah.
okay. Right. Okay. I'm gonna move on to the actors right now. Okay. So just first impressions upon first receiving the script. What was your initial reaction? I wonder whether Thomas was going like, "Where are my lines?" Because in the in the film, he doesn't really talk a lot. Yeah. So, but at the same time, we are able to witness quite a physical performance. So let's hear from all of you upon first, yeah, receiving the script. What do you think? Shall I shall I be Singaporean and pinpoint? Okay, let's have Joe, who I saw opening her mouth halfway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, oddly enough, when I received the script, I was like, oh, I wonder if they've cast the right person. I mean, that was honestly my first impression because, yeah, I think I've made quite a meal of this already, but I mean, just to sort of reiterate, I think I guess especially for screen in Singapore, we
Yeah.
do tend to cast women below a certain age as love interests. And yeah, and I think like in Asia in general, like if I was at the gym and I was like watching this Korean TV show on
Mm,
silent mode because I didn't have the headphones. And then
yeah.
essentially there was this beautiful Korean lady like shaking this another beautiful Korean lady in who was in a hospital bed going, wake up, mother. And I was like, there's no way that woman is your mother. But there's
Right.
this tendency to I think cast younger and like I think past a certain age you don't deserve sort of you're seen as not deserving of romance or sort of like you're not seen as a sexual person and I just
Mm,
so for me my immediate reaction was like okay. I'm not sure they got the right person for this. Yeah, that would be my first impression. Passing the
right.
ball on.
Right.
You want me to arrow Alfian or do you want to continue
Sure.
with
Let's arrow the next one.
ha Jalyn?
Yep.
Jalyn,
Okay.
Mm,
Okay. Yeah. So actually, I do not know when is the script come in because I remember we improvise a lot of times.
right. Right.
So like like with Thomas, we do a lot of version. So
Mm,
but after that, then I think Bee Thiam and Auntie have also took something from after the audition.
mm,
So yeah. So then when before going to on set, we have another round of improvisation, and then
right.
also I don't know. So which one is the actual script lah? So if you to ask me, yeah.
Okay.
So the actual
Right.
script is where you see now, long.
I see. Okay. 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 So there was a lot of room for improvisations on this
Yes,
set. Oh,
yes.
okay. Right. Interesting. Okay, Jalyn, who are you gonna ask next?
Thomas,
Okay.
I want to hear him.
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, now that I think about it, it's not really uh for me, I don't think it was more improvisation. It was more a
Mm-hmm.
conversation between Auntie and Bee Thiam
Mm,
and Wan Ping
right.
about the images or the movement that they wanted to
Mm,
see in the film and
mm,
agreeing on what the cinematic grammar or the movement grammar was for the character. And,
mm-hmm.
there was a lot of references for the Jacques Tati films and Charlie
Mm,
Chaplin and Buster Keaton that I had to
right.
do a lot of research with. And that was really foundational for the formation of the character.
Yeah.
As you said, Alfian, the dialogue didn't come in until the end. And so there was often a lot of, oh, on the day, here's the script. To the point where I mean, I had, for my sanity, I had
Mm,
to just keep the dialogue to the side and focus on what the story was because the dialogue was almost um, incidental to what was
right.
happening. It was more
Right.
important what the character was going through and how the events of the scene related inside the body of the character,
Mm,
which often manifested in a lot of silence and a lot of reaction. And
right.
watching the finished product, I think that was actually more important than anything I could say. in terms of what was registering inside the body, inside the physical body of the character. And I think that's often the clash of what the movie presents, is that the body is often in antithesis to what the society wants from it. You know, the structure, the language is less important. And I think it's also beautiful that the character speaks in so many different languages: physical, Mandarin, Hokkien, you know, as well as English. So I think that's what really came through, is that it was more about the essence and the being of the character than necessarily what the character said.
Right.
And so to a certain extent, the dialogue wasn't as important. Sorry, Auntie, but the dialogue wasn't as important as to, you know, what was coming from the depths of what the character was speaking. And what, you know, exactly what Jalyn said, like the opportunity for improvisation, the opportunity for chemistry reads in the beginning between myself and Guat, Kian and Munah and Joe and Jalyn was actually more important than coming to the project with a finished product or a solid understanding.
Right. A very interesting process there, because I think with some actors, when they're trying to figure out their character, a lot of it will have to rely on what are the kinds of lines that they have, right? So it seems here that in terms of character work, you're kind of like responding to other characters, responding to the environment, to the atmosphere, to the colors. So I think that's really an interesting approach. Can we then hear from Guat Kian? What did she think when she first got the script or was asked to do this movie?
Okay, so you know my English very poor. Okay, so
no problem. If you want to speak in Mandarin, so it's fine. Yeah. We can get someone to translate. No worries.
So when I got the script, I think I'm not understand full story. Okay, so I only focus in my part. Okay,
right.
And then like Jalyn, we do some improvise. After the improvise, then slowly can know more what the director want to say in this story. Okay, so for me, during the working period is very important for me. Okay, reading the script, okay, is okay.
Right.
Pro English. You understand?
No, understand perfectly.
Bee Thiam, you no need to translate for now. Okay.
So for the mother character, Kian, what do you think of her, and how did you sort of try to do any kind of research into her character?
Oh, no need Mandarin already.
No need,
because a bit deep for me. When I use the simple English to say that, okay, 因为那个不大清楚导演要的妈妈，所以 improvise 完了之后就会去根据sense 感觉导演要的是什么，然后就去找生活经验中的妈妈。
Okay, can someone translate?
Yeah. So.
Yep.
So she needs to use.
Okay. After doing the improvise, then I get more sense of what director want this character. So after the improvise, then I try to search for my experience. Okay. Got what kind of model and what kind of mother is suitable for Tom. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I think what Guat Kian was saying earlier was she was using her feelings and instinct as well to guess, I think, what we were trying to make. But I think she figured it out when we were doing the improvisations.
I see.
When she was doing it, the improvisations with Tom.
Right. Okay. Then she sort of sensed as a director which direction you're going and what you might need from the characters, right? Okay. My next question is, any of you live in Tiong Bahru yourselves?
No.
No.
Just for a month.
For me, no.
Anyone, or at least like your childhood or anything? Any of you familiar with that neighborhood?
I think the only person in the team who does live in Tiong Bahru is Auntie, who is the expatriate.
Right. Right. Who's a non-Singapore citizen, right? Okay.
Yes.
Um, but what did you think of that neighborhood now after spending time filming there and absorbing its sights and smells and sounds and cats? Anyone, Jalyn? Yes.
Okay, actually, I feel Tiong Bahru is like
Mm,
every place have it uniqueness. I
mm,
also first I also say okay, as a resident, if let's say I'm a senior resident there,
mm,
I will feel
mm.
disturbed. Then
Okay.
everything there is so expensive, and
Right.
then yeah.
Right.
But after listening to Bee Thiam in one of his interview, he said actually these Tiong Bahru senior are very smart. They
Mm,
ran away the place, and then they go to
mm.
the Tiong Bahru Market Hawker Center, drink the $1 coffee, and then watch the people downstairs drink $5, $6 coffee.
See, right. Okay.
And this is not only about Singapore. I feel because
Right.
it's like if you know like Beijing, the Sihe all these like so-called heritage places actually need to
Mm,
have a new way to survive. But is it
yep.
how to preserve it? I feel Tiong Bahru have preserved it quite well. And then for my friend that will
Mm,
stay there, and then he said his father was very grateful. They watched the play the movie. He said at
right.
least finally there are someone recording our neighborhood. He was like very
Ah,
touched. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. It's great. Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting neighborhood because I think it has been observed. There's all this gentrification going on, right? So, because of the so-called urban heritage, the architecture and all that, a lot of, um, yeah, upper middle class people are moving in and driving up the real estate prices. But also, there are a lot of senior citizens who live in that area as well. Yeah, and I really find just an interesting mesh of those two things, and I think in the film also that sort of for me becomes this um, kind of narrative about how some people who are like from the bureaucracy start coming in a certain area and then deciding like, oh, what is gonna be good for the people who live there or who have lived there for a very long time. Yeah. um Okay. Anyone else has got any of your observations about Tiong Bahru?
Actually, if you
Yep.
don't mind, can I ask a
Yes.
question to that
Sure.
end?
Yeah.
And this is for the director.
Okay.
If the expatriate community is so is integral to the question of what is the character of the Tiong Bahru neighborhood, how come they weren't represented in the movie as it stands?
In our first audition, actually, there is a
Mm,
Caucasian guy, but then I think when we were doing, I think doing the final touches of like the script and doing pre-production, we decided to make it um, less about, I think, gentrification, but more about
mm,
the aging population. So which is why it
mm,
becomes all Singaporean faces and like the young happiness agents and the senior
mm.
residents. Yeah, because I think gentrification is, I think, a whole other subject, and we want to focus on just this. Yeah,
Right.
but I think in
Right.
our interactions when we were doing research as well for the film, we were
Yeah.
participating in some of the very exciting actually RC activities. So we went down
Mm-hmm.
to meet the residents in their Chinese New Year. They have like a fortune, Cai Shen Ye. And then we
Yeah.
went down to their Monkey God Festival, along the whole
Right.
street of In Khun, I think, right? And they have like all these things, and then like they have like all those pyrotechnics and the Monkey God itself and those
Mm,
wayang. And you see in those kind of RC events, right,
yeah.
both the senior residents and also
Yeah.
actually the young people as well as people who have moved in, right, the hipsters, and it was
Mm,
actually very harmonious. And I think there was a certain
right.
respect for each other, which I think is not forced. Unlike I think maybe where
Mm,
other kind of community centers are. I think there is a really a strong bond, right, within the community itself to look out for one another and to
mm,
to respect, right, I think each other's spaces. Yeah.
right. Okay. That's interesting though, because your observation would be that these things seem to be like from the ground up and seem to be organic, but then in your film, it's really top down, right? It's really everything is micromanaged to an inch of its life. The instruction manuals here and there, for you to achieve, I suppose, a certain kind of a desired or utopian kind of life. Yeah. Um, what throw this back out to the cast, right? So we talk a little bit about the Tiong Bahru neighborhood, uh, but I want to talk a little bit about what for me is a very interesting other character in the film, which is the production design. I've never really watched any other Singaporean film. I don't know whether I can make such a large claim, but with that kind of art direction, I feel where the palette, the color grading, the kinds of props, etc., sets that are brought into that space were so artful, um, and obviously was a kind of world making, right? So as actors who are in that space and wearing those costumes and interacting with that kind of set, um, how was it like for you in that world? Did you feel suddenly you were transported in onto another planet with that environment? Maybe I want to hear from Gil. Yeah, Joe.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I thought it was definitely very transporting. I mean, just yeah, these are definitely not color palettes that you would normally see in Singapore or in most other places where everything is so, as you mentioned, curated, right? I mean, it's
Right.
pastels and this all this sort of like perfection and yeah. I mean, as an actor, of course, like some of the the careful management of the aesthetics was not easy in that, like, oh, can you move to the left a little bit? Can you like space out a little bit more on the person next to you? And as a theatre actor, it's kind of like
Right.
it really drove me a little bit crazy. And the costumes were so beautiful because they
Yeah.
all had this sort of like they all had these dangly bits and they had to be
Mm,
just right. And like when
mm,
you get up, you have to make sure they fall just right. And I was really like quietly or maybe not so quietly going crazy. I'm not sure whether like Tom remembers this. I was like, oh my God, we can shot again, just to make sure that everything was perfect. So
wow. Right.
yeah, it was very meticulous, at least for the happiness agents. I don't know whether other Jalyn and Kian, they possibly had different perspectives because they didn't have to be so freaking
Mm,
neat and tidy.
mm,
Yeah, so maybe we could hear from the rest of the cast on that.
yeah.
Tom.
Okay. Oh, Tom. Yeah.
Um, I, I, I don't think I mean, I've very limited experience on screen, but I don't think I've ever been on in such a complete world.
Mm,
And I think it's just so much. You're like half your job is done for you. It's
mm.
not like in theater at all, where you like touch a wall and the wall is like, ooh, ooh.
Right. Yep.
Like, you have to make up the physicality of the world in theater.
Yep.
But because the world was so complete and because the art
Mm,
department was so precise about everything, you just have
mm,
to exist. You
right.
really just have to exist, and so
Mm,
half the job is done for you. And that's I think that I mean that just pretty much sums up my experience.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Because when I was watching it, I mean, it's really a feast for the eyes, and then it's not just yellow; it's mustard yellow. It's not just green; it's mint, right? So yeah. When I was watching it, there's a part of me that became a kind of like Nippon swatch color person who was trying to like name all these colors because we can see the kind of care that was taken into it. Yeah, so production
And the
design
light,
was
and the light, and the
yep.
light.
Mm, yeah. So could you share
Uh,
some yes, Jalyn, yeah.
sorry, can I?
Yes.
Yeah,
Of course.
because okay, I have never watched a movie for like fourth time. So Tiong Bahru is like, I watch fourth time, and it's actually every time you see, is really
Yeah.
fascinated by the colors and actually, I would like to direct a bit for the audience to go and really see the code. The part one, to be not to be, and then the part
Mm,
two, the being, and then the last one is actually a very Lao Tzu. If you know
mm,
Lao Tzu teaching, it's like
mm-hmm.
go with the flow, and then when we shot the part that I with Thomas, that we have this
Yep.
dance scene. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
when we go into that space, it's like
Yeah.
I feel I'm already on opium. The kind
Wow.
of feeling, because the setting, you don't need to see the actual
Wow.
space is already, oh my God, I'm like very high. I'm very
Wow.
high, when you go into that space. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. So
Mm,
this, yeah, how I feel about the aesthetic. Really
yeah.
worth for you to watch the second time, the third time, the fourth time. I'm going for my fifth time.
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
selling, but
Okay.
I'm really, really, Wan Ping really did a very, very good job. I really, because it's
Mm,
like Lao Tzu, um,
mm,
the stillness, but there
yep.
is some movement. So this is like Tao, it is like it's the universe. It's very Lao Tzu teaching. Like if you go and read about Lao Tzu, then you watch this film, it's like, oh my God,
Right.
so the wisdom is there. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. How
Thank
many
you.
times, Jalyn? 4 times already. Amazing. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Guat, Ken, what do you think of the aesthetics and the design, art direction of the film?
OK，你听吗？你听华语啊。
Yeah.
我演妈妈的时候没有看到这些颜色，OK，所以我一直等到所以那个电影的那个 trailer 啊出来的时候，我真的很 surprise 那个 color，然后觉得一定很好看。OK，
So because I think most of her scenes were in Pearl Bank, so she
Yeah.
did not expect to see the colors
Ah,
until I think she really saw the trailer. Then she thought that,
right.
oh, it must be a very colorful and very nice film to watch.
Right. Okay. Wow.
But
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 I thought, yep.
yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
what can you've been to the complaint center, right? And also you've visited the set of Tiong Bahru Social Club when you visited Abi.
yeah, but it's only 1-2 day
Yeah.
shooting day, okay, and then yeah, only I feel Thomas room is very colorful, okay, that's all. But I cannot imagine now the show like Jalyn said that
Mm,
no.
mm,
I also feel that so nice the color, okay, very
mm.
fantastic, and then yeah, for me it's like this, okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I felt that even in your Pearl Bank apartment, it was really quite beautiful also. I mean, maybe the color is not so extreme as in
No, I mean
your
it's
social club.
quite
Yeah.
but beautiful, but it's
Mm,
quite natural,
I
okay.
see. Right,
Like
right. Okay.
yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Bee Thiam, I want to throw this question to you. I've read quite a few interviews with you.
Hmm.
How bored are you already with the comparisons to Wes Anderson? Because I've seen, I mean, that seems to be something that people were reaching out, conveniently, I suppose, because when they talk about the pastel palette, when they talk about the symmetrical composition, when you talk about, often like the still cameras and all that,
Hmm.
could you also give us a few other people you would like to be compared with? Like Jacques
Yeah.
Tati, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Wes Anderson wasn't one of the films at all that I showed the cast. Yeah, it was really
Right.
more Monanko by Jacques Tati
Okay. Jacques Tati.
and
Right.
Late Spring by Ozu.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is interesting because a lot of people kind of associate Ozu with black and white films, right? But here, I suppose you're referring to his later films in color.
Yes, his later films in color, which I think is really stunning,
Mm,
like Late Autumn,
right.
which is a remake of Late Spring. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So
So
I
what
think
what exactly
especially,
about?
yeah, so I think
Mhm.
especially in the world of Jacques Tati,
Yep.
so you find that actually his mise en scène is actually the main character, and
Right.
how
Right.
he
Right.
critique, I think, modernity, and I think technology is
Mm,
to have people, right, and have the characters in that space, in that world, in that universe, and
yep.
see how they are affected, by all these
Mm,
things. So I think
right.
that was what we were thinking of, right, when
Mm,
we created that space for the
mm,
actors to
right.
improvise, to devise, and to play,
Mm,
yeah.
right. Right. Yeah. So I mean, for the benefit of some of our viewers, you have to do a bit of film class right now. What is mise en scène?
Mise en scène is what you see on screen,
Okay.
which is all your props, all your set design, as well as your shadows, that will cast
Right.
by the light. Yeah,
Mm. And also the
and the
character in that
actors.
space,
Yeah,
right? Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I yeah, I think one way to look at the film also, I mean, for me, it was a lot of this mise en scène, a particular vignette in that particular space, right? And with Jacques Tati, I think what's so interesting is this tension he has, where everything is so ordered and rationalized, you know, within. I mean, it was a critique of modernity, right? So everything is so ordered, etc., and structured, but then there's this chaos as well, that sort of like runs around, that there's a chaotic energy in that space. So I also reminded of Roy Anderson, the Swedish filmmaker, right?
Mm.
And another Anderson, but how he deals with spaces also, and the kind of set pieces. So
Yeah.
this idea, the mise en scène and set piece, and the environment in a sense shaping or influencing behavior is also interesting, because I thought about what a lot of architects in the 50s and 60s, with their, I mean, you can say it's a kind of hubris, believed in, which is that architecture can shape society, right? And I think what's interesting is that you've chosen at least two locations which I think are connected to those ideas. So Art Deco in Tiong Bahru, and as well as like brutalism in the case of the Pearl Bank apartments, right? Could you tell us a little bit about this and this idea of like retrofuturism? Yeah, so people were predicting that all these environments which will lead on to like better and brighter futures, almost like
Yeah.
a kind of utopia. Yeah,
Yeah, when I think going back to what my mother was asking me, in terms of her hopes and expectations of me,
yeah.
one of the things that I think I went back to is like what did her parents, expect of her,
Mm,
and so on and
mm,
so forth. So I started to look at, I think, the works, in the 50s, 60s, and earlier, right, like what
yeah.
you've mentioned, of Art Deco or
Mm,
brutalism or even like craft works, the
mm.
electronic robotic kind of music that was done in the 60s, 70s,
Ah, right.
and
Mm,
how a lot of their works was created during a time when everything is possible, and they were
mm.
imagining a kind of future of like 2000
Right,
and beyond. And
right.
we are now 2020, so I wanted to, you know, use that kind of imagination, right, to wonder whether are we living the kind of future that they are, or are we living in the past, even
Right.
before them. So, which is why when
Mm,
we were building this world, one of the things
mm.
that we don't want to see, right,
Yeah,
is we don't want to place the film in a period.
right.
So there's no cars, there's no mobile phones, there's no computer screens in the whole film.
Yeah.
Because once you see one car, you see that the model, you know that, oh, it is 80s, or it is
Mm,
present, or it is 90s.
right, right.
And the only screen that you'll find, right, in the whole film is actually the television screen, right, that
Mm-hmm.
Guat has at her home. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
so that's, I think, how we thought about,
Mm,
like using the concept of retrofuturism
yeah.
to talk about, I think, heritage, and to talk about, on a more personal level, the expectations that we have from generation to generation.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, that was very interesting for me. This kind of like mashing up of different temporalities, right? So and a kind of timeless quality to it. I think some critics have spoken about Singapore as a place of an eternal present, because we keep erasing so much of our past, so much of our history, right? And, and it's interesting also the certain projections and ideas of the future that are captured in certain forms of architecture. And I think we see that in the work. I must say though that it's almost perverse, this whole like not wanting all the technology and electricals and electronic equipment. So when I saw Abi's office and he had all these stacks of paper, like, mm, when is this happening? Like, why does he not have a computer? What kind of a civil servant is he? And then on the other hand, you have all these algorithms and all that, right? So it was interesting for me. It was challenging also to try to sort of like place in temporally where things were happening. But I like that. I like that kind of disorientation, because the kind of like not being able to put it on a timeline makes it almost as if it's out of time and it's out of joint and it's even possibly in another kind of multiverse or different planet.
I
Even
think,
yeah.
I mean, the idea that we are looking at now, like, say, for
Mm,
example, Bentham's happiness effect,
right.
factor, or even like the Panopticon. I think these are things and concepts which has been developed, a few hundred years ago.
Mm,
And I
right.
think,
Mm,
looking at, I think how forward-looking people are during that time,
yeah.
I feel that, when we are looking at the past, we shouldn't just think of nostalgia. I think we
Mm-hmm.
should look at those ideas that have been developed that were so visionary then.
Right.
And that was what we were looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. If I can just throw a few things back at the actors again, right? I think some viewers would be very keen to know about some of the challenges that you might have faced doing this filming. Yeah. Anyone? What was most difficult for you to do? I mean, Joe, just now you shared with us, like, don't move or move an inch here and make sure that your tassels and all that are not, yeah, tangled. And any other challenges in doing this film?
I think I'm running the risk of coming across in this talk back session as very negative. So I just want
No, no, no. I will make it up with like what's the best thing about this film later. Yeah, yeah. That's your next question. Yep.
yes. I mean, I also just wanted to say that it was a challenge, but it was also really rewarding, I suppose, in
Mm,
that there was a lot of ownership for me for the character. Like literally, Bee Thiam or Auntie will just come in and go like, okay, so we're gonna do a laughter workshop.
right.
So what will you say? I'm like, okay. And I mean, and that was kind of awesome. And then they were like, yeah, that works. Or if not, like maybe like 3 hours later, like that, that doesn't really work. Let's try something else. So I mean, it was a very much time consuming. I think on the part of both the actors as well as our ads, and BTM and everybody who's behind the scene. JX, our producer, Jun
Yep.
Xiang. Yeah, but I mean, because of the amount of overruns that we had
Right.
constantly. I mean, I think the priority was really to come, like what Tom said, come up with something and constantly evolve something together
Mm,
that would fit into this idea that the filmmakers had.
mm,
I suppose some of the challenges would be that because this was constantly evolving, I think very few
yep.
of us had a complete picture of what we were supposed to develop towards. But at the same time, I think that it
Mm,
was part of the joy of it, I guess,
mm,
that we had such a hand
mm,
in having our input in that and influencing their thoughts
right.
as to what the final product would be. So that would be my challenge, as
Mm,
well as yeah, I guess what I found rewarding about it. And yeah, all those bloody
right.
hassles. Yeah,
Mm,
that was a big part of it. Yeah.
okay. What
Orchid.
about yes?
Sorry.
Go Kian. Yeah. What was difficult for
嗯
you for this shoot? Yeah.
嗯，我没有常常演电影，OK，so 我不是很确定对还是不对，所以就一直不是那么的确定啊，所以 for me 就会变成比较不知道对还是错哦。你要演别的，我会知道自己可能对还是错，可是我这一次这个妈妈我不是那么确定啊。
So for
Okay, okay.
Kian, she
Mm,
says that
yep.
she doesn't do a lot of movies.
Right.
So
Okay.
when she was making it, she was not sure, what she was doing was right or wrong.
Mm,
But when she was doing theater, she knows. But when she was making film, she is not very sure.
okay. Right. Right. No, I mean, but it's always, yeah, interesting to go out of your comfort zones. Right. I think as artists, one of the most important things to be able to say is I don't know or I'm not sure. Right. I think artists who claim that they know everything, they stop being artists. Yeah. How about Thomas?
Uh, Emotionally, this was probably one of the easiest roles I've ever done because
Right.
it's purely discovery and purely experiencing, almost like from a zero or neutral state,
Right.
childlike almost, an innocence that's almost childlike. So it was very easy in that sense. I just had to turn up to set and just be like, okay, what are we doing? Okay, because the character doesn't hold a lot of pain or tension.
Right.
The character doesn't register conflict in the way that other characters register conflict, and so that was a very beautiful experience. But in terms of like sheer physical hours, that
Right.
was hard to maintain. But you know, it was almost like I got to rest while I was performing, and the real work was when the cameras were off.
Okay.
Just
Right.
maintaining
Wow.
the energy while the cameras were off. But as soon as the cameras were on, I was like in this total clear space. And it was also my first film, so that was also that's also the hardest. That was probably the hardest part.
Right. Yeah. You did write in the chat tassels as well, right? So
Yes. Lionel would come up, either Lionel or Melissa would come up and just like arrange like a tassel here or there, and I'd just be like,
right.
so often it would feel like
Yeah.
you're tangled in your own octopus so many times.
Right. What about you, Jalyn? What was maybe challenging for you in this?
Actually, when we first began, we tried a lot of dialects. Yeah, to use different dialects to read Miss Wee. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is, and after that, I settled with Cantonese. Actually, I'm not very confident with, because when you written and you want to express, is a bit of different choices
Right.
of word to use. But I'm grateful that I have a lot of senior friends, and they are very, they are really the original Cantonese, like Dick Fu saying that kind of announcer and all that. So I have very good guidance from these sisters. Yeah.
Right.
So and about like improvise, I think yeah, it give a lot of like what God can say, like theater actors, we know what is it about,
Yeah.
but in film and TV, is the editor and director have the most say. So as the so what we do, but I'm very grateful that Miss Wee is like is a role that I have. Actually is like finally my showgirl can be shown.
Your show girl.
My showgirl side can be shown.
I see.
So,
Right.
so it's like,
Yeah.
just do it, just play, just, and a lot of
Mm.
space. Even like when we do the improvise or movement, it's actually
Yeah.
just an imagined cue in the mind. Yeah, he let us listen to, but when you move and is your there is another cue that just automatic come out. So when you
Right.
see the film, it's wow, it's magic like that, match together. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So, for Bee Thiam, did you shoot like chronologically for this film? No, huh? Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say that also because I think in theater when we perform, we do it like chronologically, right? So I don't think necessarily this is a Tiong Bahru Social Club issue. It's a film kind of issue where you shoot out of sequence, right? And as an actor, like how come we are filming the climax on the first day kind of thing, and how come like how does it all fit in? And once you finally see the film, you can okay, so that's why we did this, and the mystery is solved only on the premiere. Yeah. So as someone from theater, I mean, I understand that sense of like why we doing this, because there's no audience there that is giving us like immediate feedback as to what we might be doing right or wrong. So yeah. So what's the best thing about making this film? I know some of you mentioned a little bit. So you really enjoyed the improvisations. Joe? I see your half open mouth again, which is your...
I'm a fear of silences, so I just have to like.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess it's definitely the ownership of the character, which at the same time then when you see the final product, because of as mentioned, the edits,
Yeah.
what was left on the cutting room floor, what was perhaps like, oh, I thought I was in this shot, but actually I was just making a lot of noise, like out of frame, and I can hear my noise, but I'm not in frame.
Right.
Like, why did I do that? And yeah, so it was fascinating. So I mean, it was collaborative in a very interesting way, in that I suppose, like, because as the actors, I'm sure as a playwright, Alfian, you sometimes feel like, what the hell are the actors doing to my script? But at the same time, I think Bee Thiam and the editors, they had room to just go, okay, I'll take this. I won't take this. And so it was quite fascinating. And for me, I mean, again, I just want to amplify, I just want to emphasize that it was, I'm very grateful to have been considered and for being chosen for this role. For whatever it was, I'm not quite sure that I brought to it. But it's just that, yeah, again, if this was supposed to be a purely aesthetic thing, and like editing was such a big part of it, why didn't Bee just hire a model, and put her in there, but no, I guess for whatever Bee reasons were, like I think he wanted to show some Bee please feel free to weigh in on this, like a slice of more authenticity in the space of this strange retrofuturism, that makes it very human, and I'm grateful for that, like, and thanks for hiring theatre actors who have, I guess, that have worked on acting, and for using our training and our input to make this weird and wonderful final product. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Jalyn, what's the best thing for you
Um,
working for this
actually,
film?
yeah, I have a lot of just myself for interpretation of the movie after watching, first time, second time especially.
Yeah.
The part three, the quote is like, oh, hit me a lot. I feel a lot for that. Is like in Chinese is 足不出户得知天下事。Bee你要不要讲这个 quote English 是什么？it is an old teaching, yeah, from Lao
Yep.
Tzu. Lao Tzu actually is BC like 300, 400 years, So it's amazing with this kind of old teaching that
Okay, can
for
pause for a
today,
while?
people, yeah.
Bee Thiam, can you translate that quote for us?
It's a quote
The
by
Lao
Lao
Tzu
Tzu
quote.
towards the end of the film.
Yep.
It says, you don't have to step out of your home and you can know the universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
But
Thank you.
this
Yep.
is, I mean, for now, people will feel very contradictory because people will say, go out and then better than you read a book. But if you know Lao Tzu, then you went on to, it's actually about watching yourself. Your values is from your home.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
value inherited from our tradition. So it's a very loud thing. You go with the flow, especially the last scene that waited for 9 months.
Right.
You waited for the time, but the time comes, the time will go again. So we don't really hold on to the present, like the antique that they stole. This part of it really give me a lot of feel, and for actually for this whole week is a very traumatized for me. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to
Yeah.
hear
So,
that.
but
Okay.
yeah, yeah, but it really also like make me think, and then how to learn from all this wisdom from the old teaching lah. So
Right.
I have a
Right.
lot of feel for this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Jillian. Yeah. Seemed like, that's quite a personal connection to the message in the film. What about Guat Kian? What was the best thing about being involved in this movie?
诶，呀，这电影很特别啦，OK，so 能够参与，当然我感觉是，反正就一切好像做梦啊，我演过这样一个戏，哦，是这个样子的啊，哇，就很多东西可以想了，但还没有想清楚。How to say that?
So Guat says that the movie is special. She feels like it feels like a dream, and that there are still things that she is still thinking, and she is still trying to, that she's still thinking about. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And what about Thomas? best thing about being in this movie?
This is gonna sound really cheesy, but I think the best thing about being with this in this movie was because almost because I didn't have the preoccupation of lines. You know,
Okay.
it's gonna
Mm,
sound terrible to a playwright.
mm.
I got to focus really on the craft.
Right.
So it was almost like my vision blurred and my eyes went to soft focus, and I could really work with every single person in the movie, from the PAs to the makeup
Mm,
artists to my
mm,
to the producer Sophia, who was on hand to, like, keep me hydrated and keep me caffeinated, throughout
right.
the whole thing. Like, there was so much being done. I
Mm,
like I was honestly on set almost every single almost it felt like, I mean, they can
yep.
argue, it felt like I was on set almost every single hour,
Mm,
and I wanted also to be on set as often as I could, so that I knew uh what the journey of the whole thing was.
right.
It felt like I was integral to the whole thing as a material. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's also one of the beauties of the character, is that he is as solid and as formless and as shapeless as the entire trajectory of the movie is.
Right.
It really gave me, as a novice film actor, a sense of how a movie is made, from auditions to
Mm,
chemistry reads, to going into the spaces, coming in and seeing each space and seeing how each space works, all the
mm,
way up until the end. I really felt like I was a fly on the wall for the entire making of this movie, and it was a huge, exhausting learning experience.
right. Wow. So lovely to hear that. So I always wrap up with this kind of very standard question, which I throw to all of you, but maybe you can start with Bee Thiam. Why should people come and watch this show?
Well, it's a film about Singapore and
Mm-hmm.
Singaporeans.
Yep.
When we were trying to name, I think, Thomas' character, I was actually very resistant to call him Abi, because I don't want people to think that it's an autobiography.
It's not,
Yeah. It was actually not
but
the
I
it
thought
was
it
not the
started with a
original name.
conversation with your mom. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the original name for Thomas' character is actually Jolivin, and there's
Oh,
only
okay.
one
Right.
Jolivin in Singapore. Yeah,
Right. So
and
I just want to shout out to Jolivin right now.
exactly.
Anyway, yep.
So it was really such a coincidence. But
Mm,
then we wanted a more Singaporean name, and
okay.
we thought and we asked around, and there seems to be an Abi in every family, and which is why
Okay.
we call the character Abi. Yeah, but it is really
Right.
about Singaporeans and the average, guy on the street, who
Mm-hmm.
have all these pressures and who have to live under the bell curve, where
Mm,
happiness have to be normally distributed across everyone,
right.
and you can't like award all your students 100 marks.
Mm,
So I think it comes from there.
mm,
Yeah. So
mm.
I hope people can go to the cinemas to watch it and enjoy the performances of, I think, all these great actors that we are very
Yeah.
fortunate to have in the film.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Bitiam. Let me just arrow. Guat Kian, why should audiences come and watch this movie?
Yeah, 里面会有很多很多的 moment，很多的感觉的东西，让人家很回味的。好像我一直很喜欢 party 的那一场，在游泳池，I feel 阿比很 lonely，虽然很热闹，所以它有很多很多这样的 moment 是挺动人的，观众可以去看去感受。
Mm.
很长哦 ，Vidiam 你 try。
So there are many moments in the film that has feelings for me and that touched me.
Mm.
And I think audience can go to the movies to watch it, especially for I think the moment that Guat Kian mentioned was the moment at the party scene where it
Mm.
is very crowded, but Abi feels so lonely, and
Right.
she feels those moments, makes her think,
Mm,
and moved her.
right. Thank you. Uh, Joe?
Mm, I've heard a lot of well, I haven't heard a lot of, but I've read a few reviews where people kept mentioning that this film is very theatrical. I don't really understand what that means, but
Because you're from theater, that's why.
yes, I'm
I'm
blinded
kidding.
with my theater lenses, but
Yeah.
but I guess if I were to encourage people to watch, I would
Mm,
encourage people to look out for that theatricality and see how it's
mm,
different perhaps from what the reviewers are used to seeing.
mm,
Maybe the fact that, I mean, like Thomas's craft, I think some people, they talk about like they think it's easy to be a blank slate, and it's not. And if you watch it, I think there's
mm,
some moments which are truly lovely where it's just the vulnerability, I think, that is very rare. I think that you
right.
would see in a Singapore film where there's just nothing projected, and
Mm,
it's very raw. And I would say that that's a fantastic thing to watch. If that's what theatricality means, then yeah, by all means watch that. And I think what else would be considered theatrical? I'm really not sure. But I guess the choreography of the people in Tiong Bahru Social Club, which
yeah.
of course symbolizes the curation and the careful micromanagement of life, I suppose, in
Mm,
Singapore. That's fun
mm,
to watch as well, like just
right.
to
Yeah.
watch this sort of micromanagement from a different sort of lens, and watch how
Yeah.
everything is choreographed, and whether that's
Mm,
ridiculous or whether that's funny. A lot of the times I think it is funny.
right.
And yeah, just go into it and watch different actors, I guess, from those that you would usually watch in a Singapore film. Yeah, but
Mm,
we've got an influencer in there. If you need your influencer quota, Munah Bagharib, she's in there. She's beautiful. So yeah, but I mean, there's other fantastic people to watch as well. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
great. Thank you. Thanks. Jalyn.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like, 2020 is a very difficult, we are
Mm,
learning a lot from 2020. So give
mm,
yourself a gift,
yep.
go and watch Tiong Bahru Social Club. I mean, it's like watching ourselves, and then like a lot of people, like I also like don't understand why people are like theater actors, and maybe we don't act for the camera, we
Mm,
act for the space, and we act for the people that are around us. And then
mm,
this is a really, like Bee Thiam said, is a Singapore movie. Go and watch ourselves. And then maybe a lot of people will like want to go and find an answer for a show, but you have your own answer. Trust
mm,
me. When you go in, like what Ye Chen said, there's a lot of moment that, oh my God, that maybe they don't have a very dramatic, wow, very exciting or what, but it's the slowly, then yeah,
mm,
we can have really a lot of moment for ourselves. It's
mm.
time, at this end of the year, have some moment for yourself, not for others. And then being alone doesn't mean that you're unhappy, okay? Like Miss
Mm,
Wee. Yeah, yeah.
great. Thank you. Yes, Abi.
I just love hearing everybody's input, and I truly,
Mm,
truly, truly miss working with all of you. It's just such a
mm,
joy to hear all your voices.
yep.
Yeah, I um, I recently listened to a podcast about outrage
Mm-hmm.
on Hidden Brain. Shout out Shankar Vedantam. Um, and it said that outrage and conflict is one of the easiest ways to fulfill the reward center in terms of like, oh, this thing needs to be addressed and this thing is wrong with our society, and because it confirms your worldview. And so more often than not, it's part of a bonding experience that actually hits your pleasure centers, and it hits like this level of serotonin where it's like, okay, outrage, because that's how we self-censor, and that's how we create the society that we want. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of actually changing people's minds and in terms of actually introducing new viewpoints, outrage is not actually scientifically proven very
Mm,
successful in terms
right.
of changing new minds. There's actually a whole different plethora and variety of emotional impulses and ways that things can affect us in order to engage new thoughts, new discourse, and new ideas. And I think
Mm,
that's what this film really, really, really does. It's so subtle, It's
Mm-hmm.
so gentle and it's so beautiful to watch that before you know it, you're actually absorbing something that is philosophically and
Mm.
artistically and humanly a lot deeper than something that's just immediately gonna like, you know, fry your aggression nerves. So I think that's why you should watch this. That's why you should watch this movie. I think you go in for a ride that you're not expecting, and you leave with something that may not hit you until 2 days later.
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I completely agree with many of the things that you're saying. If I could just share a little bit, for me, I went into the film wanting or asking a question: what is happiness? Um, and how do the different characters try to answer these questions? And some of them actually do certain things which you feel uh, for me was a bit surprising because they've defined happiness in a quite unorthodox way, right? Especially Mrs. Wee, right? Jalyn's character, what's her name? Sorry.
Miss got no husband.
Oh, I see. Okay, Miss Wee. Sorry, yes, that's right. Yes, the
Still
cat loving Miss
available.
Wee. Yes, yes. So she was defining it. I'm not gonna put in a spoiler, but you know that was really surprising for me. But yet at the same time, I felt she was happy. Yeah. So that was something that I came to the film expecting to be explored. What I didn't expect was that the film was also asking this question of like what what is it to be a human being, which I think is really such a large philosophical question, and we can see that in places in Singapore, like Singapore and other societies, there is really an attempt to try to define it through certain modes that includes ranking and surveying and um, quantifying, right? But I think what's so interesting for me is that this idea of the human remains quite elusive and quite ineffable and keeps on escaping all these attempts to try to like come to something conclusive and to fix a fixed answer of like, okay, what is a human being, and I thought that was, in spite of the fact that you can say, oh, some of the performers were doing things in quite a robotic kind of manner, right? So there is this idea of the post-human as well, but at the end of the day, I walked out of it actually, yeah, really thinking about, no, actually this is a play, sorry, a film. I'm such a theater person. A film that really asks important questions about what is the human and how do we preserve that kind of humanity in environments which can sort of reduce us to economic digits, reduce us to our economic productivity and all these other things. Yeah, and even if happiness is what makes us human, I see the film as resisting the how happiness can actually be quantified. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for spending this afternoon. It's so lovely to hear from all of you. And I don't need to repeat what all of you have said. You've come up with very compelling arguments of why people should come and watch this film. Yeah. I had a great night out last night. Yeah, laughing along with the whole audience. It was quite a full house. Yes. Any final words, Bee Thiam?
Oh, thank you to Alfian for hosting us. And I think, especially for this session when we have so many actors joining us for the Q&A, I just want to, thank you guys for really working with us and collaborating with us to bring your characters alive. As well as I think I I'm very inspired by Singapore theatre. I've watched a lot of plays. I've watched all these actors on stage, and it is really a privilege to be able to work with them for Tiong Bahru Social Club. And I'm
Mm,
also very thankful as well that Singapore Theatre has provided such a great training ground for a lot of our budding artists. That I think people like me who are a film person will be able to benefit, from their craft. Yeah.
yeah. No, yes. If I can just jump in and say, sometimes some people say, oh, theater actors, they are too theatrical, right? So Joe mentioned that right now, just now, and I always found this a little weird because it's a very false division, I feel, between what is film acting and what is theatrical acting. Um, and I hope that we see actors as actors. That's all, right? I think this is all completely unnecessary. When you say, oh, TV actors only act above the necks, and then theater actors are always so big, you have to ask them to dial down. I think all these things are really, really quite
Oh yeah.
silly. And yeah,
It's a pet peeve of mine, I think, when people say that, oh, theater actors can't do screen work. I mean, some theater actors can't do screen work, same as some screen actors can't do screen work. I think,
right.
yeah, it's just yeah. I
Yep,
mean, it's just like if you have been trained
yep,
to be vulnerable, then what you does translate as opposed to I don't know. No, I'm not gonna slag off anyone. So
yep,
yay, yeah. I mean, it's just
yep.
actors. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
And to people who are watching, please, please, please go and watch this show, this film. I think personally, it really is one of the most exciting, conceptually, aesthetically films I've seen in recent times. Thank
More
you.
like this. More like this.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alfian. Thanks for
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.